Om yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakaruttam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. So in the last class, we were studying the sutras, which deals with the posture, the asana, which is one of the limbs of the 8 limbs of yoga. So as we have already described the 8 limbs, we have enlisted the 8 limbs of yoga as yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So this, as we are studying, already we have completed the study of the yama and the niyama, the 5 yamas, the 5 niyamas. And then we have started with our study of the asana. And in each of the practices, we find that they are actually not sequential. As we have already already described, that the general notion is that all the asana, all these limbs of yoga are sequential. That we have to practice the ahimsa first, followed by asteya, brahmacharya, and all those practices one by one. It's not that. All the practices go hand in hand and they are complementary. They complement each other. So even the asana, as we have seen in the last class, is not something merely physical. The 46th Sutra of the 2nd chapter, though defines asana as sthiram sukham asanam, it may appear that it actually is speaking of the physical aspect. But if we try to understand the sutra, we will find that the 2 words actually is representing 2 aspects of asana. Sthira is the physical aspect. You have to be motionless. Sukham is the psychological aspect. It should be relaxing. It's not only physically relaxing, mentally relaxing. Unless you are mentally relaxed, asana can never be perfected. So motionless and relaxing. As we were giving the example in the last class, that the mind and the body are interrelated. They are riveted. We find in our day-to-day life that when I am restless, when my mind is full of worries, tensions, and concerns, it is almost impossible to sit in one place and meditate, or even just to relax. We find that we are almost forced to move around. We'll be pacing up and down the room. When we are worried, we are tensed. What it speaks of, this body and mind are riveted. When the mind is restless, the body tends to be restless. So in yoga, they have used this riveting in the opposite way. That if you want to calm down your mind, as the body and the mind are riveted, why not take the help of the body to a certain extent? At least sit down quietly. Don't move. A little motion of the body is extremely detrimental for our practice in meditation. This we should never take casually. Many won't take this thing very serious, and we find a lot of movements are going on when they're trying to meditate. At the beginning, when the mind is not concentrated, it is almost impossible to understand that how the motions hampers our meditation, degenerates our meditation. But those who have already started getting a qualitative meditation, they understand it, that a little motion will immediately, as if bring down the mind to some 10, 20 steps down, it will come down. Immediately, a little motion because the mind and the body are riveted. Just the way we were giving the example, suppose there is water in a cup. A little motion of the cup will immediately disturb the water. That's how the body and the mind are related. The body is like the cup and the mind is like the water. A little movement immediately disturbs the mind. It immediately agitates the mind. The calmness is gone. So in meditation, we have to practice to sit quietly. At the beginning, it's very difficult. You will find all sorts of uneasiness of the body. It becomes something palpably felt when we sit for meditation. We take a resolution, we won't move. The itching will be there, aches will be there. The best way how to, at the beginning, to practice meditation, that has been spoken of in the 47th Sutra, the next Sutra. What it was spoken of, we studied in the last class, Prayatna Shaithilya Ananta Samapatibhyam. So don't stiffen yourself. In the name of being motionless, don't stiffen. Prayatna Shaithilya. That the body should be relaxed. It should be straight, but at the same time relaxed. The spine should be straight, but at the same time it should not be stretched. How to find out that it is not stretched? You should try to observe the weight of the body is not on the spine. It should be on the ribs. At the same time, the spine should be straight. And then you will find that's the position in which you can relax for a long time in that posture without getting stressed or strained. Keeping the spine is straight is very important. Why? Because all the nerve currents of our body, the main passage is through the spine. We find that if the spine is bent, we can never have sublime thoughts. So we should make it a point, the spine should be straight and it should be motionless. And the next thing is Ananta Samapatibhyam. That all short of disease, as in the last class we were saying, what is the common symptom of all the disease? It is the localization of your awareness. When I am healthy, I am not aware of any particular part of my body. The health throbs to the entire body. When I say that I am diseased, when I feel I am diseased, when the awareness gets restricted to a particular part of the body, I start saying I have a headache. When I was healthy, I was not aware only of my head. It was throbbing through the entire body. Now it has got localized. I have a headache. I have a heartache. My knees are paining. My stomach is aching. So what has happened? The more and more the consciousness gets localized, the more you are at dis-ease. Disease means the ease has gone. Dis-ease. So similarly, that's why the best way to get perfected in asana siddhi is Ananta Samapatibhyam. To think of the infinite. That your body is not the boundary of your existence. You are within, you are without. The best way is that, as we were speaking of, to get perfected in asana is to practice mindfulness. If we can collaborate this mindfulness along with the focused meditation, that type of meditation becomes extremely fruitful. We start with mindfulness. Whenever we sit for meditation, start with mindfulness. What it speaks of, I will be aware of what is going on in my body, in my mind, but I am detached. Even if I won't react, if there is a pain, I find that the knees have started aching. Observe that pain as if it is not yours. You just try to observe it objectively. How is it possible? That try to forbear that pain without moving. Let the pain be there. It's not me who is having the pain. The pain is something there. Let me try to observe it without moving. At the beginning, of course, it doesn't speak of ease. It is dis-ease. The ease has gone. But this is the practice which gradually will take you to that Ananta Samapatti. If I can be objectively observing my pain and suddenly a bird chirps, suddenly you will find that both are equally objective when you get perfected in that mindfulness. What has happened? The ego barrier has fallen off. Now, that speaks of Ananta Samapattibhyam, that you are not just limited in the body. Whatever you perceive is something which is a part of yours. So entire existence becomes your body. So with that, the sense of body gradually falls off. After that, you may go for the focused meditation. If you have some object for visualization, you can go for that. But to start with mindfulness actually will help you to have a better qualitative meditation in the next step. So that was spoken of in the 47th Sutra. Prayatna Saithilya, be relaxed, don't move, and Ananta Samapattibhyam. Just try to think of infinity. This is just, if you are thinking of the sky, the ocean, this all speaks of infinite expanse. And how to relate with that? That I am, as Sri Ramakrishna says, I am like a fish swimming in that infinite ocean, which has no boundary. Or I'm like a bird flying in the infinite sky, no boundary. There, all the boundaries has vanished. I am just flying in that expanse of infinite consciousness. So with this, you will find that the ease in meditation is developing, and that's how the 48th Sutra spoke of the result which ensues from the perfection in asana. What is that? Tata dvandva anabhigata. That all the dvandas, the opposite conditions, like pleasure and pain, as you have, by observation, you have transcended them, they fall off. They no more disturb you. All the dvandas in the form of pleasure and pain, they fall off. It's not that you develop a sort of anesthesia, that you don't in any way feel the pain or feel the bliss which ensues from a calm meditation. You enjoy the bliss, you even observe the pain, but you have transcended. Means they are no more a part of your limited body. You're just observing them. And that's how, by mindfulness, you transcend them. You don't get identified with them. It doesn't speak of anesthesia, that as if I don't observe them at all. Yes, something like anesthesia do happen, that still in the higher state of meditation, when you have entered into dharana, dhyana, samadhi. But when I'm practicing asana, my meditation is in the formative state, then also I can get rid of the pain, not by being totally unaware of it, but by transcending it through this Ananta Samapattibhyam. And then the asana becomes more and more stable, more and more perfected. And that speaks of asana siddhi. So these are very important. Unless you have ever tried to keep your body motionless during meditation, know it for certain, you can never have qualitative meditation. That so many people complain that in meditation, I never get a good meditation. The basic things sometimes we don't take care of at all. The body, somehow we will find, is moving. Just in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, without some movement, I cannot stay. A little movement, I think it's not going to affect, but it affects. That motion, that movements and the breath, the next thing, the pranayama, these two are very important. Unless to a certain extent we have taken care of them, I can never go to the next steps of pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So first, let us take care of the pranayama. After taking care of the asana, there's the breathing, how the breathing should be. So 49th Sutra speaks of the pranayama. What it is? Tasmin sati. Tasmin sati swasa praswasayo gati vichhedah pranayama. So after one has become adept in asana, that's tasmin sati, thereafter. So you have now perfected in asana. You don't move. You're relaxed. You're speaking. You're thinking of the infinite. And then with that perfection in asana, now you start pranayama. What is that? The practicing the controlling of the motion of the inhalation and the exhalation. Swasa is the inhalation. Praswasa is the exhalation. So you control the motion of inhalation and the exhalation, and that it is what called pranayama. Prana is a vital force. Ama means control. So many will be equating your breath with the prana. Actually, breath is not the prana. Breath is the thing which regulates the prana. Prana means your vitality. See, in our life, without food, you can stay for 3 weeks. Without water, you can stay for 3 days. But without breathing, just 3 minutes, I think it was more than enough. In 3 minutes, we will find that it is almost impossible to continue with our life, to sustain our life. So that's why this breath is the most important part of our vital force. All the 3 are required. Without food, I cannot think of my vital force. But I can continue for 3 weeks without food. If you are not getting any food, for 3 weeks you can sustain yourself. Average. Some may sustain more, some may bit less, but 3 weeks. Without water, you will be alive for 3 days. So that is also a factor. This food, water, both are the thing which is a factor for your vitality, for the prana. But the most important is the breath. Just it takes 3 minutes. Your life will be gone. So that's why this breath is given so much of importance. With the birth, it starts. With the death, it ends. There is no interruption. It's constantly going on. And the more we can have control over it, the more this vitality, this prana shakti, that will be properly regulated. Without regulating it, we can never think of good meditation. It's in day-to-day life we find that in the morning you wake up and you find extremely lethargic. Can you meditate? No. If you find that you're extremely energetic, that you cannot sit in one place, like in the present day, the children, the parents are so much aware not to give them too much of sweet, because it has been a established truth that they developed this attention deficiency hyperactivity, ADHD, all these diseases, hyperactivity disorder, this attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder. How? The same. This because of too high calorie food, it is affecting the prana. You become extremely restless. With that you cannot meditate. If you're too lethargic, you cannot meditate. So for meditation, this prana has to be controlled. It has to be in a state where it enables you to be calm and composed. Neither lethargic, that is the tamas, nor too active, that is rajas. It has to be vishuddha sattva, means pure sattva, where the mind has entered a flow, where with any effort, the concentration continues. So that's what the pranayama speaks of. It's not merely the breath. Breath helps in it, in attaining that state of prana. So now sometimes we have a confusion with the Hatha Yoga and with the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. These are not same. In Hatha Yoga, also they speak of this inhalation, exhalation, and suspension of breath. Exhalation is called Rechaka, inhalation is called Puraka, and suspension is called Kumbhaka. Now, in Hatha Yoga, you just take the breath forcefully, try to breathe as much as possible, exhale as much as possible, and suspension is Kumbhaka also. There will be some count where you are almost forced, you are asked to keep your breath suspended almost with force. Here, when we are studying pranayama in Patanjali, know it for certain, it is not hatha. Hatha means by force. It is not hatha. It is something which is very gentle and at the same time deep breathing, gentle breathing. There is no force involved in it. Hatha yoga can be very dangerous. Hatha yoga, at the beginning, it gives a tremendous sense of euphoria. You know why? When by force you are practicing kumbhaka, by force, you are sustaining your breath for a long time after inhalation or after exhalation. Suddenly you will find that the mind has become very light. But actually we are harming ourselves. In the long run, many cases are there where the mental derangement has happened because of this forceful kumbhaka. This kumbhaka is very risky. Why? What happens, in our entire body, in all the parts, the energy is stored. So even if the food supply is not there, if food is not going through the blood, the blood is also carrying that saturated oxygen that is not there, the body stores in the form of fat or form of energy to sustain itself for some time. But the brain is the part where no energy is stored. Constantly through the blood, whatever nutrition, whatever oxygen is coming, immediately it is nourished with that. It doesn't store anything. So the moment you do kumbhaka, there is an oxygen deprivation in your brain. And that sedates the brain. Just like, there's those who have highly diabetic. For them, there is a condition called hypoglycemia. Kumbhakas results in also something like hypoglycemia. In hypoglycemia, what happens? Suddenly, those who take insulin, suddenly they will find very light-headed and they may faint. That because as they're taking insulin, sometimes if they have not taken sufficient food, but they have taken the insulin injection, then there is a fall in the blood sugar level. And that when the blood sugar level falls up beyond certain extent, that as the brain doesn't store anything, there is no sugar which the blood is carrying, and the brain has no nourishment. And that makes you lightheaded and it can even faint. Here also, because of the oxygen deprivation, the same lightheadedness you feel. That may be euphoric because our mind is so restless. Suddenly, that forcefully you have stopped the mind to work naturally. It gives a very euphoric sensation. Oh, that all the tensions have vanished. But gradually, we are depriving the brain from oxygen. It is starving. And that gradually kills all the brain cells. And in the long run, it can result in this so-called the derangement of this brain, the nervous system. So we have found that there are many such cases where this, because of hatha yoga, this derangement happens. But what the pranayama which is been spoken of here, though it speaks of swasa prasyasya gati vichcheda, it may give us a feeling that here also they're speaking of kumbhaka. It's actually this gati vichcheda, interruption after the inhalation exhalation, is not speaking of kumbhaka. It's something natural. If you are breathing naturally, you will find between each and every inhalation and exhalation, there is an interruption. Slowly, gently, you take a deep breath, and you will find there is a very small interruption. This Gati Vichcheda speaks of that. And again, you exhale. Before you breathe in, there's a natural interruption between that exhalation and the next inhalation. So here, when they're speaking of the swasa praswasaya gati vichcheda, swasa gati vichcheda, praswasaya gati vichcheda, this actually is not the kumbhaka. This swasa inhalation followed by that small natural interruption is one pranayama. Praswasa exhalation followed by that natural interruption is another pranayama. So this is what has been spoken of in this sutra. So when I am practicing pranayama, as we told, all the practices are complementary. Another thing has to be kept in mind, that if you are very restless, that someone told with pranayama, I can control my mind, I can calm down my mind. Never practice pranayama when you are extremely restless. That's why during asana, we spoke of objective mindfulness. With the mindfulness, to a certain extent, I have already calmed down my mind. You have to calm down your mind through objective mindfulness or contemplation on God, or the meditating on the luminosity of your heart, whatever may be your practice of meditation. You have to calm down your mind to a certain extent. Keep your posture still and relaxed. So the mind, the body, both has been taken care of. Now go for this slow, deep inhalation, followed by that small interruption, and again exhale with a small interruption. This is the pranayama which has been spoken of in this sutra, where they're defining pranayama. Now, they will go in a bit details in the 50th sutra, that what this actual practice is. Bahyabhyantara, the 50th sutra of the second chapter, Bahyabhyantara stambha vritti desha kala sankhyaabhi paridrishta dirgha sukshma. So there are three types of pranayama, as has been spoken of in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. One is Bahya Vritti, one is Abhyantara Vritti, and other is the Stambha Vritti. Bahyabhyantara Stambha Vritti. The word Vritti is like Madhya Dipika Nyaya. In Sanskrit, sometimes to make the sutra compact, they won't repeat some word. They call this Madhya Dipika Nyaya. That's in the villages, you will find that between two rooms, there is a small, an opening, a small slit between the two rooms where they keep a lamp. So that's the economy, the practice of the economy of the fuel, that I need not burn too much of fuel. What I do, there's a small slit between the two rooms. In that, I keep the lamp which lights both the rooms. So when they are composing the sutras, they use many such words, many such syllables as the Madhya Dipika. That one word actually has to be connected with so many other words. That way, I don't repeat it and the sutra becomes compact. You should remember, when there was no script, these all had to be memorized. These were like notes. So the shorter it is, the easier it is to memorize and keep it in your memory. So that's why the word vritti has been used once, but it has to be connected with bahya, abhyantara, and stambha. And that's how the three types of pranayama has been spoken of. Bahya vritti, external operation, means I exhale, followed by that natural interruption. That is one, bahya vritti. Abhyantara vritti, internal operation. How? I breathe in, followed by that natural interruption, suspension. That is abhyantara vritti. And what is the stambha vritti? Now, this is the thing which you have to understand, that stambha, it's as if speaks of motionlessness, as if suspension, but this suspension is not forceful. Now, when I am breathing very shallow, you will find the interruption is, the natural interruption is very small. But if I am breathing deep, very deep, and what is a regular breathing, you breathe deeply, then the interruption it gets prolonged. Naturally, the interruption will get prolonged, not forceful. If you breathe very deeply, and then you will find that this stambha, motionless state, is getting prolonged. So here this stambha vritti speaks of that regular deep breathing. You breathing, and then if you are breathing in, it's not shallow, it's deep, then the suspension becomes a bit prolonged. That prolonged suspension is the stambha vritti, which has been spoken of here. So these three types of vritti, these again, when observed, you have to observe, you have to be very mindful when you are practicing this pranayama. It's not that I do it mechanically. When you're breathing in, constantly just be focused on your breath. So this paridrishta, it has to be observed. And not only observed, it is not the breath only which you are observing, that what is going, that the air which is going through your nose. It has to be observed in the space, means in your chest, that how the chest is expanding, that speaks of this desha, time, that how long you are breathing in, naturally, not forcefully, that how your chest is expanding, you have to be mindful of that. What drishta means to be mindful, how the air is filling your lungs, for how long it is happening. And if mentally you keep a number, this count, that speaks of the sankhya. The time becomes very easy to calculate the time if you are keeping a sankhya. So that's how, with the count, you're breathing in. It can be done, instead of doing with a mechanical count, you may just go on repeating Om. So that helps to calm down the mind more easily. That how many times you can repeat Om while breathing in, followed by that natural suspension, breathe out, natural suspension. So these are the three types of pranayama which has been spoken of. Bahya vritti, exhale, this, and then there is a little suspension. That is one pranayama. Breathe in, there is a little suspension. That is another pranayama. As your this breathing in and breathing out gradually increases the capacity of your lungs at the very beginning. If you, when you first started this practicing pranayama, the capacity of the lungs at the very beginning may not be means that profound, that it will be something very less. Through the practice, you will find the capacity of the lungs is increasing. And as it increases, the stambha vritti also goes on increasing. But in the 51st sutra, they will speak of another, the fourth type of pranayama. These are very important. You have to, because this has something to do with the calming of the mind. These are the pranayama which doesn't speak of the therapeutic effect of it. It actually has to do with the meditation. So for that, the calming of the mind is very important. The fourth type of meditation has been, of pranayama has been spoken of in the 51st sutra. Let us read it, and then in all the pranayama, how it gradually evolves, that we will try to understand. What is the 51st sutra speaking? Bahya abhyantara vishaya akshepi chaturtha. The fourth type of pranayama transcends, akshepi means transcends, the external and the internal. What it speaks of? Now, when I'm starting pranayama, you'll find that gradually your lung capacity is increasing, and with that, the stambha vritti is naturally increasing. But as your mind calms down, very interesting thing, that at the beginning, I have to breathe in for quite a long time to have particular, a certain span of stambha. That's my breath will be suspended, say for 5 seconds or 10 seconds after breathing in for 20 seconds. But as I become more and more adept in pranayama, because the pranayama will help to calm down my mind, then what happens? There is something called basal metabolic rate, BMR. That all the bodies, that whatever food we take, some people find that are having a tendency to become very fat. Though they take little food, they easily gain weight. Some may take a lot of food, and you will find that the body weight is not increasing. The basic factor is BMR, basal metabolic rate. What that speaks of? That when I am not doing any activity, just simply lying down, still I am expending some energy. Why? Just to continue with my breathing, to continue with all the biological activities that are going on, the heartbeat, the digestion, the assimilation, all those processes that is going on. Even when I'm not doing any activity, the body needs some basic amount of energy. For that metabolism has to go on. So that without any activity, that without any so-called external activity, the minimum amount of energy that is required to sustain your body, that is the BMR. Now, for some person, it is high, for some, it is low. And it has something again to do with the calmness of your mind. If your mind is very agitated, your BMR is going to be high. If your mind is very calm, it is going to be very low. That's why you will find, sometimes you will find that the sadhus, the monks, tend to be a bit pulpy, a bit fatty. And many may think that they have a lot of food. Actually, it's not the fact. What has happened, that because of the regular practice of meditation, the BMR has fallen. that even with less amount of food, they can sustain themselves. The more the BMR falls, then what happens? Even this little food that gets stored in your body, you're not expending. Why we are speaking of here? This, that at the when you're practicing pranayama at the beginning, the suspension speaks of the time when you are not oxygenating your body and your brain. You're suspended. So that for that, to suspend my breath for some time, I should have taken the breath for quite a long time. Then I can sustain for some time. But when your BMR falls, then what happens? You need not have to breathe in that much. Even with a little breath, as your BMR has fallen, you can continue with the suspension for longer time. I think this is clear to you, that when my BMR falls, this basal metabolic rate falls, even with a little breath, I can sustain for longer time. Previously, for sustaining 10 seconds, I had to breathe in 20 seconds. Now, for just with 10 seconds breathe in, I can still continue with my suspension for 10 seconds. So what happens with the pranayama, as your mind gets more and more calmed down, as your BMR goes reducing, the state of suspension is no more dependent on breathing in and breathing out. It automatically goes on elongating. It goes on, its lapse becomes more and more. So this natural way of kumbhaka, just see, it is not forceful. So gradually by pranayama, at the first you began with what? Deep breath in, and then you're observing that I shouldn't be forcing myself. Naturally, it should be sustained for some time, and then you exhale. Again, you sustain for some time, naturally, inhale. When you continue with the full paridrishta, by observing, by being mindful of it, we will find that what is happening, that your suspension is becoming bigger and bigger, and your inhalation and exhalation is becoming subtler and subtler. So there's a natural suspension, which is as if transcending the breathing in and breathing out. So this is the Chaturtha. The more you practice pranayama, the more the mind calms down, the more the body is still, not agitated, the more this state of suspension prolongs, and it as if is no more dependent on inhalation and exhalation. This is the fourth type of pranayama, and the more it happens, the more your mind gets concentrated. But again and again, we should say, it should happen naturally. Many confuse it with the Hatha Yoga. In Hatha Yoga, we do it forcefully. Here, there is no force. In Hatha Yoga, they will roll the tongue in the opposite direction, and where the larynx through which your breath is going on, that path is totally closed. So that that even when you're feeling like breathing, and naturally that the lungs expand to take in the breath, but you have forced the tongue. You have rolled it and kept it in such a way the breath cannot go in. It is a forceful way. It is not in any way you're forcing. It is happening naturally. And the more it naturally happens, the more it has to do with the mind. The mind gets calm and more calm. Actually, it's just the opposite. The more the mind gets calm, the more your breath gets suspended. You will find that even in your day-to-day activities, when you get extremely focused, your breath becomes something very subtle, and that the breathless state, you as if hold on to your breath without breathing in or without breathing out for longer time. And that also unknowingly. It happens when suddenly we are wonderstruck, when we get focused, when I'm observing something very intently, and when the breath gets automatically as if sustained. So that's automatic sustention, this sustention of the breath is what has been spoken of as the fourth type of pranayama. So when thus you get established in pranayama, then what happens? What's the result? That has been spoken of in the 52nd sutra. Tata kshiyate prakasha avaranam. The veil over the manifestation of the knowledge is thinned. You find your mind automatically is in a blissful state. It has entered into a state of flow, and your meditation, your mind is neither getting lethargic nor it is becoming restless. It has as if entered into a flow. So in the real pranayama, what happens? The more and more the breath becomes subtle, The more the mind gets calm and focused, the more the distracting thought waves that will be attenuated. That speaks of rajas, eliminating the rajas. The more the ignorance in the form of rajas and tamas falls off. The lethargy is gone, restlessness is gone, tamas is gone, rajas is gone. And the mind naturally is focused. You don't have to force your mind to keep focused. It has entered into a flow. It is naturally just holding to the object of your meditation. So this speaks of the Vishuddha Sattva state, where all the dross in the form of rajas and tamas has fallen off. So with the pranayama, your mind, that's why you will find even Shankaracharya in his commentary speaking of Nari Shuddhi. So this, through pranayama, you have to get rid of the dross so that your mind becomes alert, but at the same time is calm. This means it is not lethargic nor restless. It is just alert and it remains focused in its object of meditation. That's the state of Vishuddha Sattva. And that also is happening without any force. You don't have to use your willpower to understand the Vishuddha Sattva state, that when you are thinking of your loved one, the mother is thinking of the child. There's no effort in it. It happens spontaneously. When the love factor is there, when the devotion is there, your object of meditation becomes, the focus on the object of meditation becomes spontaneous. And that's what speaks of the state of Vishuddha Sattva. So it remains in your mind like a flow, and it has, how it have achieved? Through the pranayama, asana followed by pranayama. And this is what speaking of the result which ensues from perfection in pranayama. That all and that's the drossness of your mind falls off. Tata kshiyate. Kshiyate means attenuated, thinned. Something becomes feeble. What? Prakasha avaranam. That the mind has the natural capacity to be in a state of flow. It is the rajas and the tamas in the form of dross which doesn't allow us. You get rid of that. You have actually washed the mind, and now it has entered into a state of flow which is ensued because of perfection in pranayama. After describing this, now we will enter into the next step of yoga, and that is the Pratyaksha. Of course, there's another sutra which speaks of the attainment in pranayama, the 53rd, is still continuing with the pranayama. Dharana sucha yagyata manasa. You know that after Pratyahara, there is the next step of this yoga is dharana. So to get the capability to remain established in the state of dharana, that happens through pranayama. Dharana sucha yagyata manasa. After the covering is removed through pranayama, one is able to concentrate the mind. When the mind has entered into the state of flow, it is no more getting disturbed. So it has entered into a state of that dharana. So that's what ensues from this practice of pranayama. So these all practices are important. If we really want to have qualitative meditation, we shouldn't try to just think of concentrating the mind. Sit, and most probably I'm an initiated and I have a mantra, and just immediately I just sit down and start with repeating the mantra, and I think that my mind should get focused. It never happens. If we are meditating for half an hour, know it for certain, 10 to 15 minutes is just the preparation. And after that, another 15 minutes you are meditating. 15 minutes preparation, where you have taken care of your asana, you have taken care of your breath, and that for getting perfection in asana, you have already practiced mindfulness. You're aware of, and that mindfulness is at the beginning for your entire bodily feelings, and then that mindfulness goes to your breath. And then gradually, when you find your mind has calmed down, body is relaxed, now you can start with the dharana. And the Pratyahara speaks of withdrawing the mind. Now you can really withdraw the mind and focus your mind on the desired object. So 54th Sutra will speak of Pratyahara. What is Pratyahara? What is Pratyahara? Swa vishaya asamprayoge chittasva swarupa anukara eva indriyanam Pratyahara. It's a very poetic way they're describing the Pratyahara. Swaswa Vishaya Asamprayoge. Or Indriyas are constantly engaged with the objects of its perception. The eyes are always busy seeing, ears hearing, skin touch, nose smell, and the tongue to taste. So I am not forcing them. This pratyahara doesn't mean just to force them from the object, to force my all the indriyas to get detached from the object of my senses. No. So as Sri Ramakrishna, this pratyahara, to understand pratyahara, the best way is to take the help of Ramakrishna's example. The more you go towards the east, the west automatically falls behind. The more the mind gets concentrated to its desired object of meditation, the other thing starts falling off. That is the pratyahara. Swaswa Vishaya Asamprayoge. You get detached from the indriyas. Chittasva Swarupa Anukaraha Eva Indriyana. All the senses become as if like the mind. When your mind is calm, the indriyas has also become calm. So that's why they are both of same nature. Very nice example has been given by Vyasa in the commentary. So the mind is like the mother bee, and other senses are the entire this army of bees. So when the queen bee, the queen bee is at rest, the entire army also will be at rest. When she moves, the entire army of bees also will move with her. So if you can calm down the mind, the senses automatically fall off from the object of perception. So this is the example which Vyasa is resorting to while explaining this sutra. That the mind, like the queen bee, when it is resting, the senses also takes its nature. They also start resting. So chittasva swarupa anukara. Chittasva swarupa. The swarupa of a chitta is calm when you have got to a certain extent adept in meditation. Anukara, the other senses starts now imitating that chitta. That by how? By becoming calm. They are no more engaged, on that constant engagement with the sense organs. So that's how the swaswa vishaya asamprayoga, detachment happens, not forcefully. That I first have calmed down my chitta with the pranayama, with the asana, as we have already described. And as a result, when the mind is calm, all the indriyas automatically become calm. Because the mind is like the queen bee. The other bee are bound to follow what the queen bee is doing. If she is resting, the others are also resting. And this is the pratyahara. So all these definitions are important. Why it is important? Because without just going to the definition, if we just take the term, pratyahara means withdrawal. And then what we will think throughout our life, to forcefully withdraw. And that actually speaks of harming our psyche. You go to the psychologist, they always say, don't suppress. Yes, suppressing is bad. In spirituality, we never speak of suppressing. We speak of sublimating. That I have something to meditate upon. What is the difference between suppression and sublimation? Because something the society doesn't accept. But my impulses are forcing me to do something which the society won't approve. So now I forcefully try to stop my indriyas. That speaks of suppression. That can result in mental derangement. But when I'm having a higher ideal, for that I am withdrawing my senses. There is no chance of mental derangement. It actually helps in to have a more integrated psyche. You can understand, even with the common example that the marshmallow experiment we so many times have described. The child who has somehow been able to delay their gratification, that the marshmallow which was in the front of them, that psychologists told them that if you don't take it, I know you not relish it, but don't take it immediately, wait for 10 minutes, I will give you the second one. Most of the children fail. A few succeed. Why they succeed? It's not that because they have a tremendous willpower not to eat the marshmallow which is in front of them. It is because constantly in their mind that idea is there. I have to just wait. I will have a greater gain. The second one is waiting for me. So that's the thing which enables them to resist from the temptation. So it's not just simply forcefully stopping it. To give an example, this marshmallow experiment is very interesting. It has now, when so many layers of extension has happened on that experiment. Now there are few children who has that capacity of that long, not to be myopic, to have a that distant vision. So they can delay their gratification. But the one who cannot, how to develop that capacity? Is it something that we are, that the one who cannot delay their gratification, there is no way to train their mind? Can we train the mind? So there are a lot of experiments at how we can train. But I will just speak of one experiment, very interesting, that has something to do with the Pratyahara. When the marshmallow was kept and the children were asked not to take it, so that if they really want the second one, to wait for some time till the psychologist come back and give him the second marshmallow. Now, through a surveillance camera, it has been found a very interesting thing, that one girl, to distract her mind from the marshmallow, she just turned on the opposite direction. She turned the chair, tried to not to look at it. Still, she was tempted. She started pulling her hair so that the pain can make her forget about the marshmallow. So all those things she was resorting to, but still at last she failed. All the physical means she resorted to. She was trying not to look at it. She was hurting herself so that the distraction may be there from the thing which is luring her. Still, she found that she cannot desist from having it. And then the psychologist came and gave her a suggestion. What's the suggestion? So this is the marshmallow in front of you. Now visualize. What's the visualization? That this is actually not the real marshmallow. This table is just a frame and it is just a picture. Try to visualize that. Very interesting. The girl in the second attempt succeeded. The psychologist asked them, then how come you didn't eat the marshmallow? And the simple answer was, can you eat a picture? Cannot eat a picture. Means what happened, that the visualization, see, all those physical things couldn't help. The moment the child was asked to visualize, immediately it succeeded. So this is a very interesting thing. So this, if we, that the child could, when the child has such a simple mind, when you ask them to visualize that this marshmallow is just a picture, it does it. But the script, we go on reading scripture where it constantly says this entire world is a projection of the mind. It's not real. It's not the way we are saying. But somehow we don't have that as simple mind as the child. We cannot see it as a picture. If we could have seen it as a picture, just a mere projection, which has no reality, it's just a virtual reality, Pratyahara happens automatically. So if for like that child, we also have to imagine the entire creation is as if a framework of illusion. It's just a mere projection. The senses are making me to see it as a real way. It as such has no reality. It is a flow. It's nothing permanent. And that also it's not having any tangible reality. The more we can picture it in our mind, the more Pratyahara becomes natural. So that's why this Chittasva Swarupa Anukara is very important. If you just take care of this first portion, Swaswa Vishaya Asamprayoga, then that speaks of forcefully subjugating. That's why all the sutra has to be taken in its entirety. That Ramakrishna's story, in reading the sutras, the stories have become very important. The Ramakrishna story of these two, two friends who both were actually weavers. The two weavers story is very important, significant. That what happens in our spiritual life. When I'm reading the scripture, we are so biased. Only those things which I find amiable to my way of life, I take that, select it out and remaining is never in my notice. I never noticed that. And that's how my vision being biased, my practice becomes one-sided. I do not take the entire picture into consideration. And then that's why the practice becomes incomplete. That's the story of the two weavers is so nice in the Ramakrishna's parable, that one weaver visited the other weaver after a long time. They are friends. And the host was very happy seeing the guest weaver. The guest was welcomed, and the host, she was weaving, actually, which she had a lot of these cotton balls, various color cotton balls in her front, and she was weaving, and now she left the weaving and asked the guest to wait so that she can go and bring some refreshment. After all, she came after such a long time. When the refreshments were brought, now the host, she found one of the thread ball is missing. Now she understood what has happened. The guest is also a weaver. She got lured, seeing one cotton ball, one thread ball of very nice color. She somehow couldn't resist herself. She stole it. Now where to hide? She had kept it under her armpit. So while she was taking the refreshment, was having the refreshment, the host understood that it is under the armpit. Now how to get it back? After all, it's a very expensive one. How to get it back? So she planned that I cannot simply ask her that give it back to me. It will be an insult to her. So let me just think of a plan. So she told, see, after such a long time you visited, I am so ecstatic. I'm feeling so happy. I'm feeling like dancing. Why not we dance together? Now the guest couldn't deny. She had to agree to the host's request. So after the refreshment, now they both stood up and they started dancing. Now, the host, she was dancing with both the hands free, with both the arms oppressed. But the guest cannot do that because she has already pressed one thread ball under one of her armpit. So she, with one arm upraised, she was dancing. Then the host asked, is this the way to dance? How queer way you are dancing. It's so queer. It looks something funny. See how freely I'm dancing? Dance like me. And immediately the guest replied, I cannot. I do not know how to dance with both the hands upraised. This is how I know to dance. So this is the story which Sri Ramakrishna says that all our biases doesn't allow us to dance freely. So we keep something under our armpit, and that makes us one-sided, biased. So that happens when we are studying the scripture. We take a part of it, the remaining we forget. We never give importance to it. And then the practice becomes totally distorted. So that's why these sutras, each and every word is very important. If you just read Swaswa Vishaya Samprayoga, it speaks of subjugation. Immediately you have to connect it with the next. Chittasva Swarupa Anukara Eva Indriyana. Just as the mind has become calm, similarly the Indriyas has become calm. So first, the calmness of the mind is important. With that, the Indriyas falls off automatically. It speaks of sublimation. And that is Pratyahara. So this Pratyahara, we will describe a little more. We will take a few more examples. It's something very important. Like, those who have some mental problem, like schizophrenia. For them, we feel they automatically have Pratyahara. They are in their own world. The senses no more disturb them. Are they practicing Pratyahara? The question then comes. And when you are very much hooked to watching television, or you forget food, everything, are you practicing Pratyahara? So those questions come. So what the real Pratyahara is. So that again we will take up in the next class, and then before we take up the next practices like the Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, we will dwell with the Pratyahara, the practice of the Pratyahara a little more to understand it in its correct perspective before we proceed for the next limbs of the yoga. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.